What's up? What's up? Hey, everybody out there. It's your man, Governor Wildstar. What's up, freedom fighters? And welcome to the first episode of What? Tell me if you're with me. It is Black Side of Liberty with, again, yours truly, Governor Wildstar. I'm your host of this quick chat, and I have named it Black Side of Liberty because of a few obvious reasons. But, the word black to me really stands for a being of light, art, culture, and knowledge. You know what I'm saying? The status has been broken down here in America to create a racial barrier, a line to define us by the color of our skin. Well, really, that shit don't matter. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of us that are connected in more ways than another, and the biggest one being the soul. You know what I'm saying? We are all connected by the soul of humankind. And I want to introduce to you, people out there, my soul brother from another mother, Mr. James Just. Welcome to my show, James.
Well, thank you, Nickolas. Thank you for having me on. It's greatly appreciated.
And I appreciate you for being here with me today, James Just. And now, if you guys don't know who James Just is, he was working with me on my campaign for governor of California. That's right, I ran for governor of California. And along the way, I met this man right here. He jumped on the bandwagon to help me in that effort. And he actually got involved in the Libertarian Party himself, because I did run as a Libertarian candidate. And I believe, James, that's what you're doing right now, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm running here as Assembly 7th District here in Sacramento. But, you're responsible for this, right? I was a destitute political, ready to just sign it up all the way. And I decided I needed one more chance before I just sign the whole politics away and go off and be one of those people who don't care, right? I was ready to do it. And I said, I got to look for one more candidate, see if I can give candidates one more try, see if I can find them support. And I found you. And next thing you know, 2.5 years later, here I am running for assembly, running for office. And it's all because of you. It's all your fault, man. People in California can blame Nickolas Wildstar for being a politician.
That's good. Hey, especially if you win and you prove to them what you're really all about, because that's what people want to see. They want to see what James Just can do, what the Libertarian Party can do, what it's all about. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to prove that, once you get elected. Play that for me if you could. No, just click start right there.
Okay.
There we go.
Right, I was ready to do it. And I said, I got to look for one more candidate, see if I can give candidates one more try, see if I can find them support. And I found you. And next thing you know, 2.5 years later, here I am. Right there.
I think I'm trying to catch up here with the live video. My bad. I'm over here on this side. I was wondering. I'm like, I see you over here, but your lips aren't moving. So what's going on?
Facebook got about the Facebook got a little bit of lag. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Next thing you know,
but I do want to ask you this. Yeah, go back if you could.
I think I'm trying to catch up.
Yeah. All right. So I do want to ask you. I apologize for the interruption there. But let me ask you, James, what is an assembly member? Because a lot of people don't even know. You know what I'm saying? Especially Black people. I'll just be honest with you. We really don't give a damn about politics. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to have to break it down and, tell the people out there, what is an assembly member?
Well, conceptually speaking, an assembly member is your first line of representatives to your state government. Okay. He is the first guy. The first guy you're supposed to go to when you have an issue that you need the state government to deal with, that the bureaucracy can't deal with, or you got a law to deal with, or some social grievance. Your assembly member is the first level of government. Your senators, they're supposed to deal with the bigger issues. It's assemblymen are supposed to deal with people issues, right? They're not supposed to deal with the big businesses and the long-term kind. They're supposed to deal with people issues on the ground right now today. That's what assembly members are. The senators have longer terms for a reason. The reason assembly members have short terms for a reason, right? And these reasons are what they're actually about. Assembly members, they actually get to bring their own unique set of perspectives and talents to that job. And that whole assembly of all these people bringing their unique talents and perspectives to those jobs come together. You talk, you discuss, and you solve problems that way. And we're not having that at all these days. Everybody's in there about their ideology and what I can do in the future. And we got to change that. We got to go back to what these things are supposed to be.
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of back and forth going on right now in politics. There doesn't really seem to be a grown up in the room. It's a whole bunch of bickering back and forth, between the Republicans and Democrats. So what would be the different dynamic that you'd be, providing as a libertarian?
Well, the difference I provide is I don't engage in the back and forth. I have an uncomfortable position I stand in all the time, but stand kind of in the fence, and I say, no, I can understand this side. I can understand that side. We're talking about coronavirus right now. It's a big issue with everybody. And some people are out protesting, want their freedoms back, or their human freedoms not even back. You shouldn't have given them up in the first place. But yet, staying home and taking care of your neighbors and thinking about your community is also incredibly important. But we've got to balance these issues. We can't just, virtual signal on one side or the other that we're important. No, everybody's important. All this is important. We have to think about the long-term mental health and the physical health and the economic health. And you have to have that discussion publicly and openly. Otherwise, the people don't think you're paying attention.
You're absolutely right about that. I mean, it's very good that you actually brought up the whole coronavirus quarantine lockdown, because that's what we're experiencing right now. That's why I got this flag upside down, so y'all know what that means. Google upside down flag, okay? Because that's what this is about. This nation is in distress right now. I'm pretty sure you feel that way, James, yourself. But I just want to ask you, because, since you are running for office, a lot of people are going to be expecting you to do something about this, since like you pointed out, there's going to be some long-term effects. So what would you be able to do as an assembly member about this whole, COVID-19 bullshit or whatever the hell?
Well, the very first thing is we've got to get back to understanding that, we acted in a panic, and it was understandable that the government acted in a panic, right? The information they had wasn't very good, and everybody got scared. And so, it's okay to do that. It's okay. That was not unreasonable. But we now have better information that says it wasn't as dangerous as we first thought. And so now we have to start getting back into this, trying to get back to some sense of normalcy. But in order to do that, we have to get back into worker flexibility and business flexibility. And so one of the first things we have to do is actually repeal AB 5. Gig workers and freelancers and artists like yourselves need to have the freedom to be able to work when and where and how they want. And right now they don't. And so that's actually the very first thing we have to do is get rid of AB 5, get freedom back into the workforce and to the businesses. And so we can actually start getting the adjustments that need to be happening. Because trust me, some government bureaucrat, some politician, whatever you want to call them, is not going to know how to fix this. It's the hard worker people on the ground that can fix it, not me. But people like you and your viewers can tell me is say, hey, this is what's in my way. Can you help me get it out of my way? And I say, yes, I can. I can help you get this stuff out of your way. Because that's the job should be of an assembly member of our government, is to help people achieve their goals, not impose the government's goals on people.
You're right about that, because right now it seems like the government seems to be getting more in people's way than, than out of their way, especially with preventing them from being able to work right now. That's definitely hurting people of the middle class, people, that have low incomes, and that brings me to a good point or a good question that I want to ask you is, what does the demographic actually look like in your neighborhood? I mean, what's the ethnic makeup?
Well, in my district, it's like 42% white, about 10% black, 13% Asian, and I think it's 22% Hispanic. In my neighborhood, I live in Oak Park. Well, I guess we technically call it North Oak Park, but it was Oak Park when my mama lived here. It's Oak Park now. It's about different. It's actually kind of flipped. It's about 30%, 35% black, about 30%, 35% white, 20% Hispanic, and it fills up that way. So I'm in a very diverse neighborhood, and I got to raise my kids here. I'm from an interracial family. It's one of the best places to raise your kid, despite all of its problems, right? We don't have neighborhood schools to walk to anymore. We don't have walkable entry-level jobs for the youth of the community. All these things we don't have, but yet what we do have is community. We have a culture and a community that cares for each other and it looks out for each other. And so while we don't have a lot of economics, we have love. And so that's why I love my community.
Wonderful. All right, you mentioned something in there that you gotta explain. Did you say that you from a interracial family?
Yes, sir. All my
Oh,
children are.
right now,
Have,
come on now, man.
what's that?
I said you gotta explain that. Come on now.
No, I'm me. I'm not interracial. Well, I'm a I'm a mix of European white. So
All right.
my children's mothers are all of have mixed racial heritage, and so all my children. If you look at my kids, they get all look from I got one son who looks white, another son who looks like he's from Arabic, and I, they look like around the world. And my grandchildren are even bigger. I've got one of my sons. He's with his soon-to-be wife is Filipino, and so my granddaughter, she's Filipino. I've got another granddaughter whose mother is Mexican and Colombian, and so and the daughter-in-law who lives in my house now, she's a young black woman, amazingly hardworking young black woman, and my little son Josiah is here, gets to run around the house. It's a wonderful thing to get to see, to raise your grandchildren around your house. It's sad that these young families can't get out and start life like I was able to at 19, get out on a little house. But on the other side, it's nice to have them around.
That's pretty good. I'm glad to hear that you're actually embracing that whole family dynamic, because that seems to be breaking down in the community right now. A lot of people are really nurturing the whole nuclear family aspect any longer. So that, I guess that I would say that's one of the benefits about this whole COVID-19 thing, is it's kind of bringing all of the families together. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad to hear you're taking advantage of that and enjoying that.
One of the things I talk about is what I talk about, the family safety net. One of the things I'm talking about, what we need to rebuild in our communities, is the family safety net. It used to be, I live in the house my grandfather built, and my grandfather viewed it as a homestead. And so the whole family, literally generations of my family has viewed this as a homestead, which has allowed me to stay here, which has allowed me to let my son and my grandson and my daughter-in-law live here with me. All right. And it's provided a great safety net. What would happen if we actually had to go out and compete in the real world, the real housing market world? It'd be impossible for us to live here. We'd have to move to Idaho.
Yeah.
Else.
It is extremely unaffordable to live in the state of California, especially in places like Sacramento, where it's, one of the most expensive cities to live in the entire state, and with those low income families that live in your neighborhood and the policies that have affected them, like affordable housing and like mandatory vaccination, in order to send your kids to school in the state of California, you must get them vaccinated. So with this whole coronavirus thing, if they do end up pushing some sort of a vaccination, of course, that's going to be, mandated in order for parents to be able to have to send their kids to school. So for those black families in your neighborhood, those people of color in your district, what can you do as an assembly member to actually change those type of policies, like, what I'm talking about?
Well, anytime you give the government authority to inject a foreign substance into your body, it's a seriously dangerous road to go down, right? You're a black man, you've seen history, right? They deliberately gave black people syphilis back in experiments in Tuskegee, right? If I get my historical events properly, placed properly. And so it's dangerous. It's just simply dangerous. I don't care what your intentions are. It's a simply dangerous road to go down. I'm not one of those anti-vaxxers. I would support free vaccines or taxpayer subsidized vaccines for anybody in the state who wants one. But I would never, ever in my lifetime support mandatory vaccines. My own son was part of a vaccine trial for ear infections, and this is the same son who was hospitalized because of vaccine reactions to multiple vaccines.
Wow.
But we still put him in a vaccine trial for an ear infections, because for us, a lot of our kids had ear infections issues, and so for us, it was a reasonable risk to take. But for other people, it wouldn't be.
You would leave it to the parents themselves. But as assembly member, you're going to have to be promoting legislation, to change the current laws in California, because the laws as is say, in order for you to send your kids to school, you must get them vaccinated. So
yeah, those laws simply have to be removed, because you are, as long as you have a constitutional requirement to educate children, you cannot force them to inject a foreign substance to get that education. We've now turned our children into property of the state instead of themselves, right? They're not even property of your parents. They're just children. They're their own unique individual. Now, parents are responsible for raising them, but the state doesn't have to sit up with a child every night who's been injured by a vaccine. The parent does.
You're absolutely right about that.
And so, I encourage people, to check out your vaccines, and if you feel safe with them, and please inject them. I would suggest you do one at a time rather than multiple vaccines. But if you don't, then don't. I have no desire to force anybody, because the vaccines protect you, and that's all you need to do.
Right. I mean, one of the biggest misconceptions is that people think that if you don't get your children vaccinated, that they're going to get other people sick. But if you're vaccinated, isn't that supposed to protect you from the people that are vaccinated? Yeah, and unvaccinated, you know what I mean? So I'm one of the big believers that there's been a lot of misinformation about vaccinations in our country, a lot of propaganda behind it to push mandatory vaccination. There's been lots of other states other than California that are now pushing mandatory vaccine. And as the saying goes, so goes California, so goes the rest of the country. So I just see, it being a domino effect. And I'm a parent of a newborn. I don't want anything injected into my child whatsoever. I believe God Almighty put everything in our body that we need, to defend everything. If I want to, then I want that to be my own choice, not yours or not anybody else's.
Yeah, you're the one who has to sleep at night, right? Not me. It's exactly. your child. It's not my choice. And,
right.
And there's many ways to get to the end of life, right? There's many ways, many paths through life, and we don't have that right to tell other people what paths to take. We can tell other people you're not allowed to punch people in the face. You're not allowed to defraud people, right?
That's a big misconception right now, is that a lot of people are believing that whatever you're doing could be a criminal act, is against the law. Right now, they're making anybody that protests, is a criminal. In the state of California, the governor just pretty much banned anybody from being able to protest. They banned the First Amendment, your right to assembly.
It's not just the First Amendment. In the California Constitution, you have an expressed, it's not an amendment and call it an article under the California Constitution that you're allowed to protest your government under any circumstances.
Yeah, but then again, if you got these law officials that aren't respecting these same laws that they took an oath to uphold, that's right. What the constitutional oath is once they get sworn into office, is that they're going to do the job according to the Constitution. According to what Gavin Newsom is doing, he could care less about the United States Constitution. So with that said, now that certain behaviors have been criminalized, you have the recent shooting that happened in San Leandro, California. Black man by the name of Stephan Taylor. He was 33 years old. He was shot and killed by a Walmart or by a cop, a San Leandro police officer in a Walmart, in a crowded Walmart, okay, of all places. Shot him dead. Okay, you can check out the video. The guy was wheeled in the back because he was having a mental breakdown. You know what I'm saying? But we see things like that happen all of the time, where black men, people of color, Hispanic, whatever the case may be, shot and killed by police officers, happens all of the time, and these officers get off the hook. Well, here in California, we have a law called the Stephan Clark Law. It was just passed recently. That says officers should not be able to shoot to kill, and yet we just saw that happen. So you, as an assembly member, what would you do to, stop all of this? What is your proposal for criminal justice reform, if there is anything that an assembly member can do about that?
Well, first we have to understand that law they passed, all they did was change terminology. You literally, as the law was being written, the police unions were telling the police how to write paperwork to get around it. So it was all they literally did was change terminology. The law did nothing. And so you actually have to, there's a couple things you have to do. One, you got the short-term issues to deal with, and then you got a second long-term cultural mindset issues to deal with. The first thing you have to do is you have to take the prosecuting ability out of the prosecutor's hands, and you have to give them to defense attorneys or somebody else. Somebody else has to be part of the prosecuting team to prosecute these officers, because they work too closely with the prosecutor's office to expect you to get an honest. I mean, even if the prosecutor is honest, just human nature, right? Is going to give they're going to give the police the benefit of the doubt. It's just simply human nature. And so you need a completely separate prosecutory arm for police, right? And maybe even a separate investigatory arm that's not paid directly by the government. I mean, I don't know how we actually have to do that. Maybe people like yourself can sit down and have some discussions on figuring out how to actually accomplish that. Mm-hmm. But we need somebody else to run these prosecutions, because it's so easy to tank a prosecution and no one's going to know. So that's kind of the first thing. We got to do something with investigations and prosecutions, and that's something we can do kind of quickly, right? That's something we can put together kind of quickly. The second thing we need to do is going to be much harder, but actually going to be much more important long term, and that's changing the mindset. We have to get back from law enforcement as the goal is to peacekeeping as the goal, where our law enforcement officers, our peace officers are back to peace officers, where they're not enforcing the law, they're using the laws to maintain peace that the neighborhood wants, right? Yeah. We all want the people who are violent to be taken care of. We want the predators to be dealt with. We want the fraudsters to be dealt with. This is a universal thing. No one argues that except for the fraudsters and the predators, right? That's the only people who argue that. But the question is, how do we get to that without imposing this oppression on our people? And I think, quite frankly, our minority communities are the canary in the coal mines, right? The rest of us are under danger. If we're watching the dehumanization of one group of people, is going to get to the rest of us. It's just a matter of time. And we're watching it now. We are literally watching it now as they're arresting people for paddleboarding on the ocean by themselves, for breaking social distancing rules. It's, daft.
Right.
It makes sense.
Or having a party, you know what I'm saying? We just people having parties, 10 or more. Guess what? You're now a criminal, and they can bust up your party. They can arrest you. They can fine you, do whatever they want. They can harass you. God forbid it leads to a situation where it leads to your death, like Mr. Stephen Taylor out in San Leandro, California. So
and what's even worse is now we're going to see more and more people having mental health issues, and we haven't dealt with the use of force options. I was talking to a ex-soldier of mine. He was a ground troop in Iraq, and he said that the use of force, the terms of engagement in a war zone are actually harder than it is for a police officer in a city in the United States. It's actually harder for him to shoot somebody in a war zone than it is for a police officer in a Walmart. And that's, that just should not even be a concept that we can even wrap our head around. We shouldn't even be able to say that, and with any kind of credibility.
And there's more accountability for such a shooting, I'm sure. You got to go through a military tribunal. You can be discharged. You can lose your benefits, all that good stuff comes along with it. But if you're a cop, you get a slap on the wrist. You get paid administrative leave. You get a vacation for killing somebody, and it all needs to stop. And I hope that somebody like you can. I mean, another one of the policies that definitely has affected people of color has been the drug policies, especially marijuana of all things. We're in the state of California where marijuana is legal, yet you still see Black people being targeted and being harassed over being in possession of amounts of marijuana, whether it be a small amount or a large amount, even though you can legally sell in California, So with these type of laws in place, what is your position on marijuana? I mean, let me ask you something. Have you ever smoked marijuana? Did you inhale? as they say.
I microdose every day, and then at the end of the night, me and the other half, we sit down there and we relax for a couple joints.
That's what I'm talking about. All right,
I'm a professional driver, so I have to be extremely careful, right, about my usage. And so it's 1 or 2 hits a day to manage my anxiety, because I have an anxiety disorder, and I found out that rather than taking pharmaceuticals, It's, you know, this a usage that I can monitor myself on a daily basis based upon my needs.
Exactly.
Some days I can go, you know, until the evening without even worrying about it. And other days I wake up in an anxious mode and I need something to kind of calm the mind down. And
that's right.
Right. And so rather than taking pills for that and kind of all the long-term effects and who knows, and the, oh my God, it is such an ordeal trying to get your dosage medication settled in right. If you're someone like bipolar, Christina, my fiance, she's bipolar, and so she has to take her bipolar medication. It literally saves her life. And so, you know, I'm not against pharmaceuticals by any stretch of the imagination, but if you can use a natural substance lightly to solve your health, these kind of issues, your mental health issues or your anxiety issues, why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the minority communities and marijuana issues specifically, it's one of the things I support is cannabis economic development zones in economically challenged areas. Right? What do we need here in our economically challenged areas? We need walkable entry-level jobs in young industries. Marijuana is a young industry. We have closed businesses. We have closed box stores. All these places can be turned into marijuana processing centers, grow houses, right? And we can figure out a way to do it that the money stays in our communities. Instead of having investors come in and buy part of the companies, let's sell them tax-free junk bonds, right? Let them invest with tax-free junk bonds. So in 5 years, if the business was successful, they've made their money back, but the business ownership still stays with the community.
I like that idea, man. I think that's what we need, some more reinvestment into the community, especially from harmful policies that have, that have hurt people of the inner cities. And so I'm glad to hear that a candidate such as yourself is speaking of such a thing.
I want to say it's imperative that we keep that ownership inside these communities. We cannot have outside investors come in with their money. I mean, it's much needed at the beginning. You need seed money, right?
Right.
You need seed money. But they cannot give up ownership stake. We have to figure out a way to let these investors come in and make their reasonable profit. No one wants to, they've taken a risk, and let's let them make their money off their risk. But when that money is paid, when that money is done, get out of there and let the ownership stay in the community.
Right. So it's crazy to actually hear you talk about this because, in part, that is a portion of the Black agenda. If you've ever heard of that, it's about reinvestment into the Black community, keeping Black people, keeping the Black dollar in the Black community, reinvesting into our own community for once, making sure that we have some of the best schools, that we have some of the best roads, that, we make sure that every family does have a roof over their head and make sure that they have food on their table. And it's something that it seems like our government tends to favor one group over another. So when it comes to harvesting the Black dollar, the money that we generate, that is definitely a proposal of the candidates that run for office that are, of the melanated kind. So I want to ask you about the whole Black agenda. What is that to you, and what do you plan on doing about that as an assembly member?
Well, when you talk about the Black agenda, for me, it's all about community and your local communities and let communities making decisions. I call it organic communities. It's the same concept, different labels, but the same basic concept. Is you want to let communities decide what happens in their communities and where their economic growth comes and where their educational growth comes. And we don't want, people with outside interests, like the rich neighborhood across the other side of the hospital has a lot more say in our neighborhood than our neighborhood does.
Right.
And that's not right. It's just simply not, it's unethical. It's simply not right. I was one of the things I tell my kids, fairness doesn't exist, but ethics does.
Good.
And that's not ethical.
And James Just is in District 7, Sacramento. Just so you guys know, you hear everything that he's talking about. This is what he's going to be doing to help the Black people in that neighborhood. If you're there, you're Black, this is for you, okay? You know what I'm saying? Any of you people that, feel anything of what he's talking about, because it's some white people out there that do care about Black people, and I would definitely put you in that category, Mr. Just. You know what I'm saying? What I call personally the white minority. Those people that actually do understand the true plight of the Black people in this country, and are doing everything in their power to use their white privilege to help them gain forward in life. So I want to ask you, what is white privilege to you? Have you heard of that term before?
Yeah, I've heard of this. I've heard of the term. It's one of these things that it's hard to describe, right? Because initially, I'm a kind of a quasi-academic, right? I do a lot of studying. The initial entry of white privilege was used to educate Harvard students, literally Harvard students who had never engaged with black people before. They used the notion of white privilege to educate them on how to think differently, right? Mm-hmm. Because they really had no way to comprehend how people in a ghetto live. They just had no idea. And so they went and used this all to describe white privilege. Here's these things you don't have to think about, right? You don't have to think about what happens when a cop pulls up behind you.
Ha, right?
If I drove for 5 years without a license, I know what it's like to have what it feels like to have a cop. But as much as I can relate, I can never actually know what it's like to have the black experience. And I think that's my best kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? So I'm gonna go reach for my drink just to get a test of thing. My best relationship to white privilege is the fact that I don't truly understand it, and I know. Because I can sit here and I can tell you the academic explanation of white privilege like I just did, and it's used to describe help people who can't comprehend the differences, and this is true. And I can also sit here and tell you that it's all the various little things that white people don't have to think about as you go through life. You don't have to worry. As a rule of thumb, a white person doesn't have to worry if a cop is going to pull them out the car and arrest them, right? It does happen, but as a rule of thumb, you don't have to worry about it. And so these are the kind of things, like my children, except for my one son who looks like an Arab, we didn't have to really worry about the cops, but we did about what we did with him.
Right. And, well, it sounds to me like you got a good idea.
Yeah, I see your line.
And how you would use your white privilege as an assembly member to help those people, that are less fortunate in your community, that are highly ignored, and feeling underappreciated. Because that's the one thing about black people specifically is the majority of us do not vote, okay? Because we don't feel inspired to vote. We're not motivated to vote. We don't feel like voting works for us. So hearing you speak today, I hope that it motivated any and all of the watchers out there that live in District 7 in Sacramento to vote for Assemblyman James Just. Who are you running against, by the way? We need to I don't care about them, you know what I'm saying? I don't care about their name, but you are running against somebody else, right?
I'm running for me. I'm running for me and the people of my community, and who I'm running against is actually irrelevant.
You're absolutely right. And vote libertarian. This man right here is a libertarian. He stands for liberty, freedom, and justice for all. And that's what his name is, Just. Just vote just for justice. Before I get out of here, I'm going to ask you a real funny joke. And just so you guys know, James is my first guest on the show here. And he didn't know any of the show questions that I was going to ask him. I caught him completely off guard. So I appreciate you for asking them, for answering them all honestly. And, I appreciate you taking a moment in time to speak with me. And before we go, if you could just tell us your best black people joke. You got one?
My best black. I am a straight man. I'm the one-liner guy. I don't have jokes in my pocket, man.
I was going to say, come on.
Myself.
Give me a good one before we get out of here.
Nickolas, is there,
What's that?
So never ask me to sing either. There's kind of things that not,
So I guess there's things to never ask James Just.
Don't ask me to sing and don't ask me my favorite. Right?
Never ask him to tell the black people jokes. Because he don't have them.
I can't get away with telling black people jokes, man. Come on.
You can tell me. That's what we're here for, man.
I'm talking to the millions and millions of people we watching.
Well, hey, like I said, man, I appreciate you jumping into the conversation. Appreciate each and every one of you out there that was watching, all of your comments, that you were saying during the time that were dropping on the screen. If you have any more comments, feel free to drop them. We're going to be going through those, especially if you have any questions for my man James Just right here, or for a question for our future guest that we're going to be having here on Black Side of Liberty with Governor Wildstar. That's me. All right. And this is my guest here, Mr. James Just. Hold on. Right here. There we go. All right. James Just, candidate for Assembly District 7 in Sacramento. Thank you again, James, for being the guest on our show. Can you tell people where to find your information and how to support you?
You can go to our Just for Assembly or jjust.us. All our things go to the same website. Or you can just go to our Facebook page. We do live streams every Tuesday and Thursday night. Yep.
All right. Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? All right. Be sure to check out my man.
Talk, ask whatever questions. I answer just like I do here.
Yeah, because usually you're the interviewer, you know what I'm saying? And he's interviewed me a few times. So I appreciate him for letting me switch the tables on him and letting me put him in the hot seat for once.
Table flop, man. It's a weird spot for me to be in.
Exactly. Hey, well, you did wonderful here today. So I appreciate you again taking the time to watch with me here today, my man, and or talking to me, and as well as all of you guys out there for watching. So till next time, I want to tell you all to be black, be beautiful, and be lovely. All right. Like I said, beings of light, art, culture, and knowledge. All right. Is that you? All right. Is that you? Good. Till next time, you guys. Much love. Long live liberty. Peace.